In a striking display of intra-party discord, the Democratic Party is grappling with profound divisions as it faces the ongoing challenge of uniting against former President Donald Trump. The latest turmoil erupted following Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer's controversial decision to endorse a Republican-crafted funding bill aimed at averting a government shutdown. This choice has ignited fierce backlash among Democrats, exposing a rift that could have significant implications for the party as it approaches the 2024 elections. On March 14, 2025, as the House of Representatives prepared to vote on the funding bill, Schumer found himself in an uncomfortable position, praised by Trump while simultaneously facing condemnation from key party figures including former Speaker Nancy Pelosi and House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. Schumer justified his support by asserting that a government shutdown would grant Trump excessive power, saying, "I believe it is the best way to minimize the harm that the Trump administration will do to the American people." He emphasized that allowing Trump to dictate government operations through a shutdown posed a greater threat than the bill itself. Despite Schumer's rationale, reactions from within the Democratic ranks were swift and severe. Many party members expressed outrage at what they perceived as a capitulation to Republican demands. The group Pass the Torch, which has previously called for President Biden to step aside, criticized Schumer for failing to meet the moment. "Chuck Schumer is unwilling and unable to meet the moment," they stated, reflecting a growing sentiment that the party's leadership is out of touch with its base. Jeffries, during a press conference, sidestepped direct support for Schumer, indicating dissatisfaction among House Democrats. When pressed about his confidence in Schumer, he replied curtly, "Next question." This avoidance speaks volumes about the tensions simmering beneath the surface, as many House Democrats feel betrayed by their Senate counterparts who voted with Republicans. A letter from a coalition of 60 House Democrats articulated their concerns, arguing that the legislation potentially legitimizes Trump's agenda and undermines the party's values. Further complicating matters, Schumer's support for the bill led to public dissent from several Senate Democrats, including Raphael Warnock, who hinted at the need for new leadership in the future. "I expect new leadership in the Senate next year, or after the next presidential election in 2028, he remarked, a statement that underscores the precarious position Schumer occupies within his own party. The funding bill ultimately passed with a mix of Democratic and Republican votes. But the decision to align with the GOP has left scars that may not heal easily. Critics argue that the legislation not only cuts essential non-military programs but also strengthens Trump's executive authority, allowing him to manipulate funding without congressional oversight. This sentiment was echoed by Senator Patty Murray, who voiced concerns about the bill's implications for federal programs crucial to American families. As the fallout continues, progressive groups have signaled they may seek to hold Senate Democrats accountable, with many activists calling for primary challenges against those who supported the funding bill. Organizations like Indivisible and Move On are mobilizing their members to express their anger at town halls and public events, indicating that this fracture could have long-lasting effects on the party's cohesion. In the wake of these events, the Democratic Party finds itself at a crossroads. With the 2024 elections looming, the need for a unified front against Trump has never been more critical. However, the current infighting exposes a deeper struggle within the party to reconcile differing ideologies and strategies. As Democrats weigh their options, the question remains: can they find common ground and emerge stronger, or will the divisions deepen, jeopardizing their chances in the upcoming elections? As the political landscape shifts, all eyes will be on how the Democratic leadership navigates this turmoil and whether they can reclaim a sense of unity in the face of adversity. The coming weeks will be pivotal in determining not only the fate of the party but also the trajectory of American politics as it grapples with the enduring legacy of Trump's presidency. In a dramatic turn of events within the Democratic Party, the recent endorsement of a Republican-led funding bill by Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has ignited fierce infighting, revealing deep divisions as the party grapples with its strategy against former President Donald Trump. As the clock ticked down to a potential government shutdown, Schumer's decision to support the measure, which included contentious provisions such as spending cuts and increased border security, drew ire from influential party members and grassroots activists alike. On March 14, 2025, the Senate passed the funding bill with a vote that saw Schumer align with 9 other Democrats and nearly all Republicans. This move was aimed at preventing a government shutdown that could have given Trump greater control over federal services and operations, a scenario Schumer deemed worse than the concessions made in the bill. "I believe it is the best way to minimize the harm that the Trump administration will do to the American people," he stated, emphasizing the need to avoid a shutdown that could empower Trump further. The backlash from within the party was swift and severe. Prominent figures like former Speaker Nancy Pelosi and House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries openly criticized Schumer, with Pelosi labeling the situation a false choice between a shutdown and the Republican bill. A group of 60 House Democrats even penned a letter denouncing the legislation, arguing that it legitimizes Trump's dismantling of government functions. The tensions underscore a broader struggle within the Democratic Party to present a united front against Trump, whose influence continues to loom large over American politics. Many Democrats, particularly those aligned with the party's progressive wing, are frustrated with what they perceive as a capitulation to Republican demands. Senator Raphael Warnock remarked that he anticipates new leadership in the Senate following the next presidential election, signaling a potential shift in the party's direction if current leadership fails to meet the challenges ahead. Trump, for his part, welcomed Schumer's decision, praising it as a good and smart move and predicting that it could lead to significant changes in governance. This endorsement from Trump, however, further fueled the anger among Democrats who view Schumer's actions as a betrayal of party principles. The divide within the party raises critical questions about its future strategy. While Trump and his allies, including tech billionaire Elon Musk, push for aggressive cuts to federal programs through initiatives like the Department of Government Efficiency, Democrats find themselves in a precarious position. They hold the power to block Republican legislation but lack sufficient votes to advance their own alternatives, a situation that has left many feeling trapped and without clear options. Matthew Iglesias, a prominent commentator, noted that the current Democratic strategy seems devoid of a coherent plan to combat Trump's agenda. He argues that neither the House Democrats nor the vocal critics on social media have offered a viable pathway to achieve their goals, highlighting a deep-seated frustration within the party base. As the political landscape continues to shift, the Democratic Party's struggle to unify against Trump remains a critical concern. The events of the past week signal not only a fracturing within the party but also a potential reconfiguration of political alliances as the 2024 elections approach. The implications of this internal conflict will undoubtedly resonate as Democrats seek to redefine their identity and strategy in the face of ongoing challenges posed by Trump and his supporters. Looking ahead, it remains to be seen whether the party can reconcile its differences and forge a unified strategy that aligns with the values of its diverse membership, or if it will continue to be hampered by infighting and a lack of direction. With the stakes higher than ever, the coming months will be pivotal in determining the future of the Democratic Party and its ability to effectively counter Trump's enduring influence in American politics. In a dramatic turn of events, the U.S. Senate successfully passed a Republican-led spending bill late Friday, narrowly averting a government shutdown just hours before the deadline. The bill, which keeps the government funded through September, showcases the shifting dynamics in Congress as lawmakers grapple with President Donald Trump's aggressive fiscal policies and the significant pushback from within their own ranks. With tensions running high, Senate Democrats faced immense pressure from both their grassroots supporters and the looming threat of a shutdown that could have severe repercussions for federal operations. The urgency was palpable as the clock ticked down to midnight, the moment when funding would cease unless Congress took action. Ultimately, 10 Democratic senators concerned about the potential fallout of a government closure opted to support the bill, allowing it to advance to a final vote that relied heavily on Republican backing. Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer, who had been advocating for a more assertive stance against Trump's proposed cuts, surprised many by announcing his support for the Republican-drafted proposal. "I did not like the bill, but triggering a shutdown would be a worse outcome," Schumer stated, emphasizing the dire consequences of halting government operations. His decision sparked backlash among party members who felt it betrayed the core values of the Democratic platform. The spending bill comes in the wake of Trump's controversial agenda, which includes plans to drastically reduce the federal workforce through the Department of Government Efficiency DOGE, an initiative led by tech entrepreneur Elon Musk. This department aims to slash federal spending by a staggering $1 trillion this year, having already claimed to have saved over $100 billion. However, these figures have faced scrutiny, with critics pointing out that actual verified savings are significantly lower. "The government is funded, let's get back to work," asserted Senator Ted Cruz, underscoring the Republican position that voters have mandated a change in governance under Trump's leadership. However, this sentiment is met with resentment from Democrats who view the bill as a capitulation to a broader agenda that threatens essential public services. Schumer warned that a shutdown would empower Trump and Musk, enabling them to dismantle critical government functions at an accelerated pace. The fallout from the vote was immediate, with demonstrators gathering outside Schumer's Brooklyn residence voicing their discontent with chants of "Chuck betrayed us." The tension reflects deeper divisions within the Democratic Party as grassroots activists demand stronger opposition to Trump's policies. Looking ahead, the passage of this bill marks a significant victory for Trump, consolidating his influence over a fractured Republican Party and highlighting the challenges Democrats face in uniting against his administration's agenda. With the government now funded, all eyes will be on the implications of DOGE's sweeping reforms and how they will reshape the federal landscape. As Congress resumes its work, the struggle to balance fiscal responsibility with the protection of public services remains a contentious battleground, and the stakes have never been higher. As the dust settles on the 2024 U.S. elections, attention is increasingly turning to the implications of the results, particularly in the House of Representatives. With all 435 seats contested this year, the stakes were high, and early indications suggest a narrow margin between the two major parties. Following the presidential election where former President Donald Trump was elected for a second term, the balance of power in Congress remains uncertain. As of the latest updates, Democrats have secured 204 seats while Republicans have claimed 213, leaving both parties vying for control of the House, with 218 seats necessary for a majority. The uncertainty is compounded by the fact that several critical races remain uncalled, specifically in states like Alaska, Arizona, California, Colorado, Iowa, Maine, Ohio, Oregon, and Washington. This fragmentation not only highlights the intense polarization within American politics but also raises questions about legislative effectiveness moving forward. The GOP's regained control in both the Senate and the presidency provides Trump with a robust platform to pursue his legislative agenda, which includes controversial measures such as heightened tariffs that have already rattled financial markets. Trump recently imposed an additional 25% tariff on steel and aluminum imports from Canada, raising the total to 50%. This decision is indicative of the administration's broader strategy to prioritize domestic manufacturing, albeit at the potential cost of increasing prices for consumers. The market's response has been one of caution, reflecting the fear that such moves could spark retaliatory measures from trading partners and exacerbate economic tensions. In Congress, reactions are polarized. Representative Lizzie Fletcher has been vocal about the adverse effects these tariffs may have on everyday Americans, particularly women who studies suggest may bear a disproportionate burden of higher import taxes. In response, she has co-sponsored the Prevent Tariff Abuse Act, aiming to limit the president's ability to unilaterally impose tariffs under the guise of national emergencies. Additionally, Fletcher has raised concerns over recent actions by the Trump administration affecting the Department of Education, where significant layoffs have been reported. Over 1,300 employees received termination notices, prompting her to introduce legislation aimed at safeguarding the department from staffing reductions and restructuring. The implications of these budget cuts could reverberate throughout the educational system, affecting not only employees but also the students and families dependent on their services. The political landscape is further complicated by a partisan spending bill currently under consideration, which has drawn criticism for proposing deep cuts to critical programs. Fletcher highlighted how the bill jeopardizes funding for the National Institutes of Health and various infrastructure projects, asserting that such measures would undermine essential services in her district. As the new Congress prepares to convene in January, the potential for legislative gridlock looms large, especially in light of the contentious atmosphere surrounding the election outcomes and the ongoing debates over fiscal policy. The division within the House could hinder the ability to pass bipartisan legislation, leaving critical issues such as healthcare, education, and economic recovery unresolved. Looking ahead, the interplay between the executive and legislative branches will be critical in shaping the direction of American policy. With Trump back in the White House and a Republican majority in the Senate, the upcoming months will likely see a concerted push to implement the administration's agenda. However, as the contentious House races wrap up and the final counts come in, the question remains: will the newly elected representatives be able to bridge the partisan divide to address the pressing challenges facing the nation? The coming weeks will be telling as both parties recalibrate their strategies in response to the electoral landscape. In March 2025, the contentious debate surrounding birthright citizenship in the United States has reached a critical juncture as legal challenges to an executive order issued by President Donald Trump have prompted renewed scrutiny of the 14th Amendment. The executive order, signed on January 20, 2025, seeks to redefine the parameters of birthright citizenship, specifically targeting children born in the U.S. to undocumented immigrants and those with temporary legal status. As the legal battles unfold, the implications of these actions could reshape the landscape of American citizenship. At the heart of the issue is the Citizenship Clause of the 14th Amendment, ratified in 1868, which states all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. This clause has traditionally granted citizenship to anyone born on U.S. soil, a principle reinforced by the Supreme Court's landmark ruling in United States v. Wong Kim Ark 1898, which confirmed the automatic citizenship of children born to immigrant parents. Despite this established legal precedent, anti-immigrant factions have long sought to limit the scope of birthright citizenship, culminating in Trump's executive order, which claims to clarify who is subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. The executive order specifically aims to exclude from citizenship children whose mothers are undocumented and whose fathers are not U.S. citizens or lawful permanent residents, as well as those born to mothers who are in the country temporarily, such as on a tourist or student visa. The order has already sparked a flurry of litigation, with several states and immigrant rights organizations filing lawsuits to block its implementation. By January 23, 2025, U.S. District Judge John C. Kokenauer issued a temporary restraining order against the executive order, asserting that citizenship by birth is an unequivocal constitutional right. Legal experts have questioned the practicality of a citizenship framework that could vary by jurisdiction, raising concerns about the chaos it could create for families expecting children. Without a nationwide injunction, it would be chaos, noted Amanda Frost, a law professor at the University of Virginia. The Trump administration's emergency appeal to the Supreme Court seeks not to uphold the new limits on birthright citizenship, but rather to narrow the scope of the injunctions that currently block the executive order from taking effect nationwide. As the legal arguments unfold, the administration has framed its actions as necessary for national security, asserting that the Citizenship Clause has never been intended to confer citizenship universally to all born in the U.S. This perspective, however, has faced significant pushback from legal scholars and judges alike, who argue that the historical interpretation of the 14th Amendment has consistently included children of non-citizen parents. The potential implications of these legal battles are profound. If upheld, the executive order could lead to a situation where many children born in the U.S. would face challenges in obtaining citizenship, impacting their access to essential services and rights. Critics argue that this approach revives a caste-based system reminiscent of the Dred Scott decision, which denied citizenship to African Americans based on race. As the Supreme Court prepares to hear responses to the administration's appeal, the outcome could set a critical precedent regarding the interpretation of birthright citizenship. Legal experts and advocates are closely monitoring the developments, aware that the ramifications of this case could resonate for generations. The future of birthright citizenship in America hangs in the balance as the courts grapple with the interpretation of a constitutional principle that has defined citizenship for over a century.